I said she walked like a penguin. She slapped me into Antarctica. Course cold reception Felix Norden pressed his forehead against the small window of the transport plane, watching the endless white landscape below. The roar of engines couldn't drown out the echo of his department head's words. Your reckless theorizing has embarrassed the entire institute. 6 months at Polaris Station should cool that overheated imagination of yours. His career trajectory had been meteoric until 3 weeks ago. One controversial presentation suggesting unconventional climate pattern theories, and suddenly the rising star of metropolitan meteorology was being shipped to the bottom of the world. Felix ran his fingers through his copper hair, wondering how everything had unraveled so quickly. The plane lurched as it began its descent toward the research station, a cluster of colorful buildings dotting the white vastness like a child's scattered toys. His stomach knotted, partly from the turbulence and partly from apprehension. First time to Antarctica, the pilot's voice crackled through the headset. Felix nodded. Is it that obvious? Everyone looks the same way their first flight in, like they're heading to prison rather than one of the most extraordinary places on Earth. The landing was rough, the plane skidding slightly on the ice runway before coming to a halt. Felix zipped his thermal jacket to his chin and braced himself for the cold he knew awaited beyond the aircraft door. The blast of air that hit him stole his breath despite his preparations. Negative 30 degrees Celsius felt like being slapped with frozen knives. Squinting against the brilliant reflective sunlight, he spotted a figure approaching from the station, walking with an odd, shifting gait that reminded him of Dr. Norden. The figure called out, her voice partially muffled by her parka hood. I'm Dr. Amara Wells, Glaciology Department Head. As she reached him, she pulled down her face covering, revealing warm brown skin, frost-tipped eyelashes, and dark eyes that assessed him critically. Welcome to Polaris Station. I trust your flight was tolerable? Felix extended a gloved hand. Just Felix is fine. And yes, apart from contemplating my professional exile, it was lovely. Dr. Wells's expression remained neutral as she took his hand briefly. We're understaffed and overworked here, Dr. Norden. Your exile, as you call it, could be productive for everyone if you approach it with the right attitude. She turned, gesturing for him to follow toward the station. That's when he noticed her distinctive walk again. A side-to-side motion that distributed her weight efficiently across the ice, her specialized boots creating a rhythmic pattern in the snow. Do you always walk like that? The words slipped out before he could filter them. She stopped abruptly, turning back. Like what exactly? The sun behind her created a halo effect around her hood, and Felix knew he should stop talking, but his mouth betrayed him. You know, like... He mimicked the waddling motion with his hand. Dr. Wells stared at him for one long, frigid moment. Like a penguin? Is that what you're suggesting, Dr. Norden? I didn't say that. Felix backpedaled, heat rising to his cheeks despite the sub-zero temperature. You didn't have to. You wouldn't be the first clever newcomer to make that observation. In one swift movement, she scooped up a handful of snow and hurled it directly at his face. Felix sputtered, wiping the icy crystals from his beard and eyes. What was that for? Consider it your Antarctic baptism, she said, her voice cool but with a hint of satisfied amusement. Spend 15 years walking on ice in polar gear and we'll see how you move, Dr. Norden. Now shall we continue the tour? Or would you prefer to critique my locomotion further? The station's logistics manager, Rafael Torres, who had been unloading supplies, burst into laughter. I see you've met our Dr. Wells properly now. She only snow faces the special ones. Felix brushed the remaining snow from his jacket, a mixture of embarrassment and respect warming him despite the cold. Message received, Dr. Wells. Lead on. I'll follow your expert example. Smart man, she replied, resuming her walk toward the main building. Perhaps there's hope for you yet. As they approached the colorful structure that would be his home for the next 6 months, Felix couldn't help but think this Antarctic punishment might be more challenging and interesting than he had anticipated. Breaking the ice 2 weeks into his Antarctic assignment, Felix found himself trudging across the ice shelf alongside Dr. Amara Wells. The wind whipped between them, carrying away any attempt at conversation. It suited Felix fine. Their interactions since his arrival had been strictly professional and decidedly frosty. We'll set up the new monitoring equipment here, Amara shouted over the wind. Pointing to a spot where the ice formed a slight depression, The satellite data suggests unusual temperature fluctuations in this quadrant. Felix nodded, dropping his heavy pack and beginning to unload the sensitive meteorological instruments. His fingers, despite the insulated gloves, felt clumsy with cold. When he fumbled with a delicate sensor, Amara sighed and knelt beside him. Like this, she demonstrated, her movements precise and practiced. These need to be calibrated exactly or the readings will be useless. I know how to set up monitoring equipment, Felix said defensively. Amara raised an eyebrow. Do you? Because from what I heard, you're better at creating theories than gathering accurate data to support them. The barb stung more than the cold. That's unfair. My theories were based on incomplete data sets and ambitious extrapolation, she finished for him. Your Antarctica Event Horizon paper made quite a stir in the scientific community. Felix looked up in surprise. You read my paper? Of course I did. Everyone here did. It directly contradicted my team's findings on glacial stability in this region. She secured the last sensor and stood, brushing ice from her knees. It was brilliantly argued, actually. Just wrong. Before Felix could respond, a sharp crack echoed across the ice field. Both scientists froze, exchanging alarmed glances. That's not normal, Felix murmured. No, it's not. Amara's voice had lost its edge, replaced by professional concern. She scanned the horizon, then pointed to a fissure forming about 50 meters away. We need to move. Now. They hastily gathered their equipment, but as they turned to leave, another crack, louder, closer, split the air. The ice beneath them trembled. Run! Amara shouted, grabbing Felix's arm. They sprinted across the unstable surface as best they could in their heavy gear. Felix heard the ice giving way behind them, a groaning, splitting sound that spurred him faster despite his burning lungs. Suddenly, Amara's distinctive gait worked to her advantage. Her weight distribution kept her from breaking through the thinning ice. There, she pointed to a small ice cave formed by ancient glacier movement. We'll be safer there until it stabilizes. They dove into the azure sanctuary just as a large section of the shelf collapsed behind them. For several minutes they sat in silence, catching their breath, the only sound the distant cracking of ice adjusting to new pressures. That wasn't supposed to happen, Amara finally said, her voice quiet in the blue-tinged darkness. Not according to any of our models. Felix unclipped his pack. Maybe your models need updating. Or maybe, she said slowly, your theory about accelerated deterioration patterns wasn't entirely off base. He looked at her in surprise. That almost sounded like a compliment, Dr. Wells. A reluctant smile tugged at her lips. Don't get used to it, Norden. She activated her emergency radio. Torres, this is Wells. We've got unstable conditions at Site 4. Requesting delayed pickup until morning. We're sheltered and safe, the radio crackled. Copy that, Wells. Storm's rolling in anyway. Hunker down. We'll extract at first light. As night fell outside, the temperature dropped further. They set up emergency heaters and huddled on opposite sides of the small space, the blue ice walls refracting what little light they had. Why glaciology? Felix asked after an hour of silence became unbearable. Amara looked up from her data tablet. I grew up in Miami. When I was 9, our house flooded during a hurricane. The water kept rising for years after. Sea level rise took my childhood home. She traced patterns in the ice wall beside her. I wanted to understand the forces that changed my life, maybe help others prepare for what's coming. The vulnerability in her voice stripped away the professional tension between them. And you? She asked. Why chase storms and patterns? Felix smiled ruefully. My father was a fisherman. Died in a squall that wasn't predicted by the weather service. He shrugged, attempting nonchalance. I thought if I could predict the unpredictable, maybe I could save the next guy. Amara studied him, her eyes softening. That explains your unorthodox approach. You're not just building models, you're looking for what the models miss. Exactly, he said, surprised by her insight. That's exactly it. They fell quiet again, but the silence had transformed from icy to contemplative. As the storm howled outside, something shifted between them. A mutual recognition that perhaps they were both seeking answers to the same questions, just from different angles. When Felix offered to share his emergency chocolate ration, Amara accepted with a genuine smile that seemed to warm the ice cave more effectively than their portable heaters. You know, she said, savoring a small piece, you're not entirely what I expected. Felix Norton, he grinned. I'll take that as progress from the snow in the face. Her laugh echoed against the ice walls, creating a crystalline melody that stayed with him long after they'd fallen asleep on opposite sides of their temporary shelter. Thawing Hearts, the midwinter celebration at Polaris Station, was a tradition born of necessity, a festive respite from the perpetual darkness of Antarctic winter. The common room had been transformed with string lights, makeshift decorations, and tables laden with precious fresh food flown in on the last supply run before the station would be completely isolated for 2 months. Felix adjusted the collar of his one non-thermal shirt and surveyed the room. 3 months into his assignment, he'd found an unexpected rhythm to station life. More surprising was his growing collaboration with Amara. Their findings from the ice shelf incident had led to a joint research project, one that was yielding fascinating results about microclimate acceleration, patterns. Admiring your handiwork? Raphael appeared beside him, offering a glass of rare, fresh orange juice. The decorations committee did well. Amara did most of it, Felix admitted, accepting the juice. She has an eye for transforming spaces. He'd learned that about her during their field excursions, how she could turn a desolate ice plain into a laboratory of wonders through her perspective alone. Speaking of Dr. Wells, Raphael nodded toward the entrance where Amara had just appeared. Felix nearly choked on his juice. Gone was the bulky cold-weather gear and practical station uniform. Instead, she wore a simple blue dress that caught the light as she moved. Her hair, usually hidden under thermal caps, fell in dark waves past her shoulders. Their eyes met across the room, and she smiled. That genuine smile that had become increasingly frequent over the past weeks. Felix found himself moving toward her without conscious decision. "You clean up well, Norden," she said as he reached her. "I wasn't sure you owned clothes without thermal lining." "I could say the same about you," he replied, "though I miss the distinctive walk. Not quite penguin-like in those shoes." She laughed, the sound warming him more than the station's heating system. "I see we've progressed to penguin jokes. That's relationship evolution right there." The station commander, Diana Chen, clinked a glass for attention. "As tradition dictates, we celebrate midwinter by honoring our work and our community. This year we have special recognition for the Wells-Norden Climate Anomaly Project, which has identified patterns that could significantly impact our understanding of ice shelf stability." Applause filled the room as Diana raised her glass. "To science that challenges assumptions, and to unexpected partnerships." Later, as station tradition dictated, they all bundled up to step outside and view the aurora australis dancing across the sky. The temperature was brutal at -45 degrees, but the spectacle was worth the discomfort. "It never gets old," Amara murmured beside Felix, her face tilted upward, illuminated by the green and purple lights rippling above. "No matter how many winters I spend here." "How many has it been?" Felix asked, realizing how little he knew about her life before he arrived. 5 consecutive years, she said. "I usually rotate out for a few months each summer, but—" She hesitated. "This place gets in your blood." The isolation, the purity, the purpose, Felix understood. Despite his initial resentment, Antarctica had begun to work its spell on him too. Or perhaps it wasn't just Antarctica. "Our data from the Western Quadrant came in," he said, watching her profile as she gazed skyward. "It confirms your theory about the subsurface currents affecting surface temperature." She turned to him, surprise and pleasure lighting her face. "Really? That's brilliant," he finished. "Your insight was brilliant, Amara." Something shifted in her expression, a vulnerability rarely visible beneath her competent exterior. Coming from the notorious Felix Norden, that means something. The aurora reflected in her eyes, and Felix felt himself leaning closer, drawn by a force as inevitable as the polar magnetism above them. When their lips met, her initial surprise melted quickly into response. The kiss deepened, warming them despite the Arctic chill, their breath mingling in visible clouds as they briefly pulled apart. "That was unexpected," she whispered. "Was it?" Felix smiled. "I thought you were the data expert. The evidence has been accumulating for weeks." She laughed softly, tugging him closer for another kiss. Around them, their colleagues pretended not to notice, though Raphael gave Felix a discreet thumbs up. Later that night, as they walked the heated corridors back to the residential section, Amara's tablet chimed with an incoming message. She glanced at it, then stopped walking, her expression shifting. What is it? Felix asked. It's from the Global Climate Institute, she said slowly. They're offering you a position on their primary research team. Fast-tracked reinstatement to your former status. She looked up at him, eyes searching. Based on our preliminary findings here. The message hung between them, opportunity and complication intertwined. Felix's heart stuttered as he realized the crossroads had appeared sooner than he expected. Amara's carefully neutral expression couldn't quite hide the question in her eyes. Was Antarctica, was she, enough to compete with the career redemption he'd been seeking? That's interesting timing, he managed, the celebration's warmth suddenly dissipating as an invisible chill settled between them. Thin ice. The weather station monitors beeped insistently as Felix adjusted the parameters, trying to make sense of the anomalous readings. Outside, an unexpected storm gathered strength, the sky darkening to an ominous gray-purple. But the turbulence outside was nothing compared to the storm brewing inside Polaris Station. You're leaving, then? Amara's voice from the doorway wasn't a question. Felix turned, his stomach nodding at her carefully composed expression. A week had passed since the midwinter celebration. A week of awkward encounters and professional conversations that deliberately avoided mentioning the global climate, institute offer, or the kisses they'd shared beneath the auroras. I haven't decided yet, he said, which was partially true. The rational part of him recognized the opportunity for what it was, career salvation, a chance to prove his theories on a global stage. But another part, a growing part, felt anchored to this ice-bound outpost and the brilliant woman who challenged and inspired him daily. They need my answer by tomorrow's satellite uplink, he added. Amara stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind her. I've been reviewing your notes on the Western Quadrant data, she said, all business now. Your conclusions about the temperature inversions are, can we not do this? Felix interrupted. Can we talk about what's actually happening here? Her professional mask slipped momentarily, revealing hurt beneath. What's happening is you received a prestigious job offer based on our joint research, and you're considering taking it. That's perfectly reasonable, is it? He stepped toward her. Because it doesn't feel reasonable. It feels like running away. From what, Felix? A few months at a remote station. A kiss during a celebration? Her voice remained steady, but her hands betrayed her, fidgeting with the tablet she clutched. The monitoring system beeped again, more urgently this time. Felix glanced at it, frowning. These readings can't be right. Grateful for the distraction, Amara moved to his side, studying the screen. The barometric pressure is dropping too rapidly, she murmured. And these wind speeds. The station intercom crackled to life with Commander Chen's voice. Attention all personnel. We have a Category 5 polar storm approaching from the southeast. All outdoor operations cease immediately. Report to the main building for emergency protocols. Their personal dilemma momentarily shelved, Felix and Amara hurried to the command center where other staff were already gathering. The atmosphere was tense but organized. Antarctica veterans knew how to prepare for extreme weather. Latest models show this storm sustaining for at least 72 hours, Chen explained, bringing up visualization maps on the main screen. Wind speeds exceeding 100 knots. We'll lose satellite communication within the hour. The Western Research Station is still manned, Amara said suddenly. Jackson and Patel are collecting core samples. Felix checked the storm trajectory. They're directly in its path. With these conditions, they'll never make it back to main base in time. Chen's face was grim. We can't send the transport vehicle in these winds. The emergency shelter, Felix suggested. If they can reach it, it's only stocked for one person, Raphael interjected. And barely accessible in a whiteout. Amara was already pulling on her thermal gear. I know that sector better than anyone. I can guide them to the shelter via radio and bring additional supplies. Absolutely not, Chen and Felix said simultaneously. It's suicide in these conditions, Felix added, his heart racing at the thought. We have a 90-minute window before the storm front hits their position, Amara argued. That's enough time to reach them with the lightweight snowmobile. Chen studied the data, then nodded reluctantly. Take Torres with you. At the first sign the window's closing, you turn back immediately. That's an order. I'm going with her, Felix said, already reaching for his gear. You're not experienced enough for this kind of operation, Chen countered. But I am experienced with these specific storm formations, he insisted, I can read the patterns better than anyone else here. If the window starts closing, I'll know before the instruments register it. After a tense moment, Chen nodded. Gear up, you have 10 minutes. As they prepared in tense silence, Felix finally spoke. For the record, I wasn't considering taking the job offer. Amara paused in checking her oxygen supply. What? I realized something when I saw that message, he continued, securing his thermal boots. The work we're doing here matters more. What I've found here matters more. He looked directly at her. You matter more. Her expression softened momentarily before professional focus returned. Let's discuss this after we save our colleagues, shall we? The journey was brutal. The lightweight snowmobile fought against increasingly violent winds. Visibility deteriorating with each passing minute. Felix monitored the storm patterns on their portable weather station, anxiety mounting as he watched the front accelerating toward them. We need to move faster, he shouted over the wind. The storm's picking up speed. They found Jackson and Patel hastily breaking down their equipment, relief evident on their faces as the rescue team arrived. Leave it, Amara commanded. We have 18 minutes before this area is impossible to navigate. They loaded the essential samples and equipment, the 4 of them barely fitting on the snowmobile designed for 3. As they turned back toward the main station, Felix felt the distinctive shift in air pressure that preceded a major front. Stop, he shouted. We need to change course now. Main base is that way, Raphael pointed, and the storm just accelerated. We'll never outrun it in that direction. Felix pulled up his portable weather scanner. The emergency shelter is our only option now. Amara made the decision instantly, veering the snowmobile toward the small outpost barely visible through the swirling snow. They reached it with minutes to spare, the winds now howling at dangerous speeds as they forced the door open and tumbled inside. The shelter was minimalist, a single room with basic emergency supplies and a communication system currently rendered useless by the storm. Designed for 1 person, the 4 of them barely had room to sit. Cozy, Patel joked weakly as they huddled together, listening to the storm rage outside. Felix caught Amara's eye across the small space. She gave him the slightest nod, acknowledgement, respect, perhaps something more. They were alive, together, and for now, that was enough. Outside, Antarctica unleashed its fury, while inside the tiny shelter, something stronger than the storm was crystallizing between them. Crystalline clarity. 3 days later, they emerged from the shelter to a transformed landscape. The storm had reshaped the ice fields, creating new ridges and depressions across the formerly familiar terrain. The communication system finally crackled to life, Commander Chen's relieved voice breaking through the static. Repeat, do you copy? Wells team, do you copy? We copy, Amara responded. All personnel accounted for and unharmed. Equipment damaged but salvageable. Thank God, Chen exhaled audibly. Base sustained significant damage. We've got structural issues in the east wing, and the communication array is compromised. Evacuation protocols have been initiated. Felix and Amara exchanged alarmed looks. Evacuation? Felix questioned. What's the timeline? Transport arrives in 48 hours. Essential personnel remain, everyone else out, including you. Dr. Norden, your Global Institute representatives have been notified and are arranging your direct transfer from McMurdo. The connection crackled and faded. Felix stared at the radio, then at Amara, whose expression had gone carefully blank again. Looks like your decision's been made for you, she said quietly. The journey back to main base was somber. The storm had done considerable damage. One of the research buildings was partially collapsed and crews worked frantically to salvage equipment and secure unstable structures. Commander Chen met them at the entrance, relief evident beneath her professional demeanor. Good work bringing everyone back safely, she told Amara and Felix. Dr. Norden, your evacuation paperwork is ready. The Institute is eager to have you begin work on their climate modeling project immediately. I haven't accepted the position, Felix started, but Chen was already turning away, called to another emergency. In the chaos of post-storm operations, Felix barely saw Amara over the next day and a half. When he did catch glimpses of her, she was directing recovery efforts, organizing research preservation, fully immersed in saving what could be saved of their work. The morning of the evacuation, Felix found himself in the damaged laboratory, staring at their joint project data displayed across multiple screens. The storm had provided unexpected validation of their theories. The anomalous patterns they'd documented had accurately predicted the unusual intensity and trajectory of the weather system. It works. Amara's voice came from behind him. Your model works. He turned to find her in the doorway, looking exhausted but determined. Our model, he corrected. It was your glacial stability variables that made it viable. She stepped further into the room. The Institute will be impressed. This could revolutionize climate prediction systems. I'm not going, Felix said simply. Amara blinked. What? I requested to stay as essential personnel. Chen approved it this morning. He gestured to the data screens. This work isn't finished. I'm not finished here. Hope flickered across her face before caution reasserted itself. What about your career redemption? Your chance to prove everyone wrong? Felix moved closer to her. I've realized something these past months, especially during that storm. He took a deep breath. I came to Antarctica seeing it as punishment exile. But it's actually been the most honest work environment I've ever experienced. Here there's no room for ego or politics, just the truth of the ice, the sky, the data. He smiled slightly. And you? Me? Her voice softened. You challenged me. Pushed back against my theories, made them better. Made me better. He reached for her hand. The Institute job would mean developing this model without you. And I don't want that. I don't want any of it without you. Amara's careful composure finally cracked. I was preparing myself to say goodbye, she admitted. I've had practice at it. People always leave Antarctica eventually. Not everyone, Felix said, gently pulling her closer. Some people find something here worth staying for. Her smile bloomed slowly, brilliantly. And what exactly have you found worth staying for, Dr. Norden? Well, there's the extraordinary research opportunity, he teased, wrapping his arms around her waist. The unparalleled data collection potential. The career-defining climate modeling breakthrough. Is that all? She murmured, her eyes sparkling. There's also this brilliant glaciologist, he continued, his voice growing serious, who walks with this distinctive gait that I've come to find incredibly endearing. Who challenges every assumption I make. Who kissed me under the southern lights and made me forget I was standing in the coldest place on Earth. Amara laughed softly. Sounds like you might be developing a condition. Antarctic-induced romanticism. Very serious. Terminal, I'm afraid, Felix agreed, drawing her closer. No known cure. None? She whispered against his lips. Well, there is one experimental treatment, he murmured, closing the distance between them. Their kiss was unhurried, deep, certain, warming them from within as the Antarctic sun cast prismatic light through the ice-covered windows. The evacuation helicopter's distant rumble eventually pulled them apart. Outside the window, they watched it depart, carrying those returning to the world above. You're really staying? Amara asked, her head resting against his shoulder. Felix nodded, watching the helicopter disappear into the vast Antarctic sky. I came looking for redemption in all the wrong places, he said. Turns out it was waiting for me at the bottom of the world. Amara smiled up at him, no longer hiding behind professional distance. Then welcome home, Felix Norden. Outside, the Antarctic winds shaped the ice into new formations, while inside, two scientists who had found each other in the most remote place on Earth began mapping their own uncharted territory, together.